Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm doing a new episode with a guest that's been on the show before for the Whole Athlete Podcast. And we do have this on YouTube channel, the Whole Athlete Podcast, as well as the audio versions on your favorite podcast hosts. So Stephanie, thank you for coming on again. And we love that you're coming on. I love that you're coming on during the holiday season. We're posting this the first week of December. And I'm talking a lot about hashtag, I keep doing that, attitude of gratitude in the holiday season. So thanks for coming on today to talk about embracing love and letting go some toxic relationships in life and everything. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
So tell us kind of what you've been doing. Last time we talked to you, we were going into what you offer, your kind of colonics, that your business and your philosophies. So kind of give us an update of what you've been up to the last year.
Oh gosh, the last year has been amazing. And, speaking of attitude of gratitude, I have been so grateful for everything that showed up. It's been a fairly challenging year, just personally for me. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. Because, when we have those things that show up that are really challenging, I always look for that silver lining. I always look to see, what is life bringing me that is going to help me move into a bigger part of me or the better part of me. And my business has been really, really expanding. I now have 2 therapists that work with me. I just hired another one.
And you're in LA.
I am in Los Angeles. Yeah. Yes. And so, I have a pretty busy practice. I've also been working with a editor and literary agent, and we are getting ready to shop different publishing houses to start publishing my book. And I've also created a metaphysical cleanse, and it is a 5-hour really video and PowerPoint presentation that's a self-healing course for people to kind of move through and learn how to heal on many different levels of their being.
And that's what I wanted to have you on the show today, talk about it, because you sent it to me and, keep me updated on your progress of, sharing your passions with everyone. And developing a program is a lot of work. I've been doing the last 2 years trying to get my manual and workbook put out this month. And then it's just, there's so much to do, and we have full-time jobs on top of that, and trying to keep ourselves healthy and not, forget about what we preach to others. We have to take care of our own selves to get this stuff done and not overdo it in life. But
exactly,
your metaphysical cleanse, kind of talk about what even the word metaphysical means, and then cleanse and how that works together.
Okay. So, metaphysical for me means anything outside of the physical body, right? It includes the physical, but we're not just a physical body. We are an energetic body. We're a spiritual body, emotional, mental. And the reason that I created this particular course is clients will come in and see me for metaphysical sessions. And so we'll take a look at any dysfunction that's going on in their life, whether it's within their body, whether it's in their relationship, whether that it's in their mind, anything that's showing up in their life that they're really wanting to shift and change because it's not bringing them happiness, which is really what I think, human beings are hardwired for happiness and joy. And it's one of those things that when we get pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, sometimes we kind of push away from it. And I really ask people to embrace it. Mm-hmm. Because, that's where we can really learn so much about ourselves and get beyond the hurdles and get beyond the things that keep us stuck. I created this particular metaphysical cleanse as a way for people to shift their perspective if they need to and look at, okay, if I'm having a physical dysfunction in my body, what is my body trying to help me to heal mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Mentally, where do I need to change my thinking so that I can really move into health? Both mentally and physically. Emotionally, is there anything that I haven't really dealt with? Is there anything that's unresolved or left over? Spiritually, are there any parts of me that really need to surrender into a place of trust so I can let go and be free?
That's really huge. And that's, what I try to talk about, the different elements on the podcast of what the holistic method is to me, and happiness is one of the major elements. And I think that is so crosses over to everything else, our sleep, our stress, our digestion, our exercise, nutrition. Happiness is, they all spokes on a wheel, all intertwine and impact the other, but happiness is so huge. And Dr. Traub last episode talked about, he's a naturopathic doctor, and he talked about happiness and the pursuit of happiness. And I think what you're going for is so essential. It's like even a naturopath doctor and what you're doing and what I'm doing, obviously there's something that's missing in our society that we're having to bring in happiness, and how it's gotten lost that we're all talking about it. It seems silly that, why are you happy? I'm wearing this Minnie Mouse shirt to work today. And I just think it's funny because it makes me happy and smile and, be silly. But I think so many people are so busy, and that chronic busyness often leads to the stress and the hormonal cascade, but also we lose that sense of joy in what we do each day in life, and we get forgetful, and almost like you're saying, and it goes back to childhood relationships and things that's happened. But also, don't you find just people in general are opposite of unhappiness? It's happiness, unhappiness, stress, and they're all connected. But what do you find is your motivator to talk about this and write about it?
For me, I think because I am so blessed to be able to work with people on the level that I do, when people come in, they really trust me to talk about things that maybe they can't talk to with some of the people in their life. What motivates me is really, my job on the planet is to help people realize the truth of who they are, because most of us have forgotten. And what you were saying is absolutely correct, that, why are we talking about happiness? This is just, a part of who we are. But I think a lot of times we've lost it because, think back to when we were little babies, right? So we are told who we are by our parents. And then if we have siblings or cousins or aunts or uncles, and everybody's telling us who we are. Then we start to go to school, and our teachers tell us, and our classmates tell us. And then we start to get out into the world, and we start to have relationships. They start to tell us. And, it's just really a way that I think you've got all these levels now on top of who you are, and all of a sudden, who is that?
Yeah.
So to be able to come back to the truth of who we are worthy because we exist, and we are love. That's really the truth. And the thing I think that hampers people's unhappiness is the fact that they don't feel like they're enough, that they don't feel that they're lovable. And that's really not the truth.
And, it's funny, I own a fitness studio in Bellevue, Washington, Seattle, and I always make sure everyone feels sense of community, and we're a fitness family, that every client that walks in the door and leaves the door, we say their name, hello, goodbye. And I didn't think that much of it at first, but a client came and said, you just make my day when you say, hello, Robin, and you get excited that I walk in, and pay attention when I'm leaving, and I can tell if they're off or on, if, something's going on, that I'm sensitive to that. But it's interesting that so many people don't probably get that at home, or, they're a mom or dad or a spouse, and they're working full time, and they're giving, that a lot of people don't get it back to them. So it seems like whatever we do in life, that we're missing that, like you said, self-love, and getting that giving back to other people is not happening as much. That we're just too busy to say hello and, give a little hug to somebody.
Right. And I love that you're talking about that. I really, in my daily practice, if a man opens the door, if I'm going into a store, I take that moment and I really look at him and I say, thank you, because it makes such a difference to people to be acknowledged. That is one thing that, as a colon therapist, it's a very interesting part of my work, is that we acknowledge parts of the people that don't really get acknowledged. A lot of my business is acknowledging the inner child. And, so I don't know, for those that don't really know what colon therapy is, it's a way to cleanse the large intestine. But for me, it's very deep, sacred work. It's a way to really access the subconscious and the unconscious within the person. As we're talking about these things that are really heavy on them, and we start to acknowledge and validate, what that must be like in their life in a way that they're not really getting that acknowledged, the person feels seen, they feel heard. It's one of the reasons I think Twitter and all these social media outlets are so important to people, because it's sometimes the only way that people get acknowledged. And the more that we can acknowledge that within each other, by really starting to acknowledge it within ourselves, that makes a huge difference in terms of creating happiness for people.
Yeah, and just to tie, we were talking before we started recording, for those listeners that are wondering what we're talking about, how does this relate to triathlons? I really strongly believe, we've talked about this in other episodes, that happiness drives people to do workout because they get that endorphin high. And we talked last episode, it's kind of meditative state when you're going for a swim in the ocean in Hawaii, or you're going for a bike ride by yourself. It's very meditative. But for racing, for endurance athletes or anyone that's doing racing all the time, that I talked about in my book, Life is Not a Race, and the Holistic Method Manual, about, what are you running to, or what are you running from? That so many people, it's like filling a void when they do a lot of races. And some people, I'm like, why do you need to keep doing that and make it compulsive and can't just sit still? And I think it's like people that I know, friends, that always take these jobs that they're working 12-hour days, and you realize, okay, it's not the job, it's you. So it's, similarities that we're just, what are we running from? It's just something that we're trying to not pay attention to, or we're trying to escape those emotions or feelings or something. It seems like a lot of athletes do racing because you feel good when you cross the finish line and you want to do it again because you get that high and feel good about yourself. But I always feel like sometimes there's something else there that people choose to race. And I mean, it's a positive thing, but talk a little bit about how you're saying, the inner child and how that connects to, what we're doing in life now as an adult.
If that is really true, and I really believe that it benefits people to reflect on this part, to ask these questions about themselves. Am I really running away from something? And sit with that. Give yourself a minute and really breathe it for a moment and see. Because there's a knowing inside each one of us, and we'll get an answer. If that is true, from my experience, a lot of times the healing really does need to go back to that inner child who maybe hasn't been honored when they were younger, by no fault of a parent. I want to be clear, I'm not blaming anybody's parents, because our parents gave us the love that they really felt for themselves. That's what we as human beings do. So it is something to take a look at, to really recognize. One of the best ways to find out is, if your inner child really does need some healing, get a picture of yourself, maybe a few different ages, and take a look at it and see what emotion starts to come up in you. If you're holding that picture and you're looking at it and you really want to start to cry, that may give you an indication that there may be some grief there. If you start to feel angry, that may be a way that your little one is telling you there's some unresolved anger there, or resentment that needs to be addressed. And you can have a conversation with this child as if it's an actual child in front of you. That's the beauty of it. It really just takes the willingness to do so, to sit down with that part of you and be willing to love that part of you, even though there may be parts that don't feel very good. Because there's really no way through but through to sit with it and feel those feelings around it.
Yeah. Wow. I just thought of a friend of mine that I used to coach and help. It was interesting first, learning about the inner child. And the Czech Institute, when I did my holistic lifestyle coach training, they talk about the me and the child ego and the adult ego all the time. Jator Pierre talks about that a lot. And it's really I never thought of that until, last 5-10 years, working on the holistic side of health, and that these people that had, say, parent, I have one example is that the parent decided to raise the kids differently, one with rules and one without rules. So they didn't have boundaries. And so it's interesting, as an adult, she was not able to take any direction to have someone in charge of her. She would kind of rebel and have this inner child would come out. And we figured out, it's like, well, you never had anyone be in charge of you before and tell you what to do and set guidelines and set goals. And it was always on her because their mother just said, okay, you figure out it on your own, which wasn't always a great way to do it, but as a child. But it's interesting how you're raised as a child. Again, not putting down the parents, is just interesting how we come up as an adult, and you might still have those feelings inside of you that you've never even known about that show up as an adult in different life experiences that you experience through your own life journey.
Yes, absolutely. And because what happens is when we're a child, as we're moving through our childhood experiences, we end up coping however we can, right? And so sometimes we will kind of push that to the side because we're just trying to get through. And then as we become adults, we start to think, well, that's our past. I don't really have to think about that anymore. But if you're somebody who maybe shows up in a way that might be less mature than your physical age shows, or, a lot of times you'll get things mirrored back to you too from other people. So if somebody's doing something that's making you upset, that's a great time to sit and reflect and take a look at, what is that saying about me? Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of relationships. That's what I love about relationships, is they really can help us to see and understand more about ourselves. If we're willing to not personalize it, if we're willing to say, okay, so something you're doing is really bugging me, then I need to take a look at myself. Why is that bugging me? Because the truth is, if we were really super healthy and we've, resolved our issues, we could look at that other person and say, wow, you're really having a hard time today. I mean, because that's really what it's about, Yeah. So I really am very grateful for how it all shows up in my life. And it's such a beautiful way for us to be able to heal within.
So healing within, I think, some notes I was just writing down, but people that work excessively, as just almost any addictions, that's like, what are you running from? Yeah. So working 12, 15 hours a day, trying to avoid something in your life and figuring out what that is. People that exercise are just chronically busy throughout the day, but also with food. A lot of people that they're stress eaters and they're overweight, and they have some people that been overweight their whole life, and they just have this psychological connection that, if I lose weight, this is going to happen, or they have roadblocks. So I think, it's really important to stop and reflect and take that as everything happens for a reason. What's your lesson learned from this experience? But go into your program a little bit and let's dive into what it's about and why we can benefit from it. Okay.
So like I said, it's 5 hours, and it's a combination of video and PowerPoint presentation. I also include 17 PDF worksheets because everybody learns differently. Yeah. So some people will learn by a video. Some people will learn by seeing words on a screen. Some need to be able to write things down. So I've pretty much provided any different way that a person could possibly
Some need
learn.
All of the above combined.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, it's also kind of boring just to have it one way. The three main topics in this particular metaphysical cleanse, in order to self-heal, I believe we do need to really help our little one heal. That's reparenting the inner child in a way that maybe they didn't get the parenting that they needed. To be able to really connect with our higher self and really start to trust that part of us, and to really honor and listen to the wisdom of our body. So, because you work with athletes and because they're so physical, especially if maybe they're the type of people that are just going, maybe they don't give themselves time to stop and really listen. If they get a particular injury, it's really important to take a look at, where is that injury showing up? What is my body telling me? You can literally talk to your body, go within, ask, what is this about for me? And it will tell you. And so it's learning to develop a relationship with that part. Those three parts, I think, are really the key to healing. So, it's broken down into 18 chapters, so somebody can do, and there may be about 15 minutes each, which is nice because, like you said, we're all busy. But it's a way for you to be able to, do this chapter and then reflect on it and see if you can start to work that in your life. And then as you get that concept down, go on to the next chapter. I do include a lot of tools for daily living for people. such as I was saying earlier, there's no way through but through. Sometimes when we start to do emotional work, it can be painful. And there's a part of us that's like, oh, I don't really want to feel that. That feels terrible. Excuse me. So to have these reminders can be really helpful. And, you know, one of the things I notice that people say a lot in life is I have to figure out how to blah, 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 blah. And when we connect to that higher self, each one of us has a higher part that is calm, that is all knowing, that knows that everything's okay, that there's no problem, all is well. When we can really connect with that part of us, we can have peace. And developing a relationship with that part can be really helpful. Sorry, got a little.
Get some water. So that's, you know, what I did last year. I took school to become a nutritional therapy practitioner, and working with one of my mentors to continue learning it was a forgiveness supplement you could take to forgive somebody that he did some different training that I've taken, but a healing kind of something you can test on your head at different reflex points if you haven't forgiven someone. If you have stress, you're holding on to something inside that you might just need to be able to forgive someone, and then you let go of this whole emotional thing. Is that kind of some things you go into as well, or have you experienced?
Absolutely. You know, and really for us to be able to forgive anybody, we need to start forgiving ourselves. One of the most important chapters is on grieving. Because, you know, grief isn't just about people who have passed away from our lives. It's about also grieving the loss of childhood, grieving the loss of a relationship with a parent in a way that maybe we wanted. Because, you know, people are who they are, and we can't change them. We can't control anything about that. But it is important for us to acknowledge that our inner child wanted it to be a certain way. And sometimes people will go from A to C and they forget about B. So this happened and they're like, well, just get over it. But we can't. Because if you think about a child, they can't get over something. They live in the present moment. For them, when they're holding emotional pain, without being taught how to be able to really feel that and acknowledge it, they feel that they're going to hold it for the rest of their life. And that's where our suffering comes from. So it is important for us to sit with that little one and acknowledge, yeah, that was really painful for you. You really wanted to have your mom show up this way. You really wanted your dad to spend time with you and to cheer you on. And you didn't have that. And I'm sorry. And that little one will start to cry, and that emotion will start to come up. And it's such a healthy way for it to come up and out. So we don't hold it in our physical body or any of our energetic body, because that's really, that's really where I feel disease starts to happen. So yes, that's a very big piece.
That's my next question I was going to ask is, what are some symptoms that we even have? I mean, we probably all have a little of this going on, but how do you know, or where does it show up? Like injuries, or you're just all those people that are always anxious. Maybe they get short-tempered. I mean, what kind of symptoms do you find that you see with people that have something going on with their child ego?
Definitely sadness and depression, for sure. Anger, resentment. Resentment's a big one. And yes, physical dysfunction, because I really do believe, and not 100%, but I do believe that a lot of times the body is talking to us. So let's say somebody, you know, I see constipation a lot, of course, in my sessions. And if you think about it, you know, when you have an animal and the animal feels safe, they'll show you their tummy. They want you to pet their tummy. Human beings are not that different. So when we don't feel safe, what do? We start to close in on ourselves. This closing in really can contract the energetic body, which then contracts the physical body, which then starts to impede the flow, whether it's digestive flow, lymphatic flow, cerebral spinal flow. Then we start to get congestion. When we don't maybe want to deal with certain emotions, then we can start to make food choices, which are, a lot of people kind of know them as like maybe comfort food, right? That in the moment it may feel good, but ultimately it tends to create inflammation and then congestion. So it's congesting us even more. It's bringing us in even more. how people can see this is if they are working out to excess, or they're eating to excess, or they're working to excess. When that activity stops, check in. How do you feel? Mm-hmm. Because in the moment when you're doing that thing to get away from a feeling, yeah, you're going to feel pretty good. But it's the aftermath that you want to pay attention to, because that's going to show you really what's going on. If you come back to the depression and the anger and the resentment, yeah, that's your body just saying, it's okay. There's just other things to look at. Now, there are some people that have done a lot of therapy. They've done a lot of healing work, and they're like, oh, I've looked at that already. And absolutely they have. I want to honor that and acknowledge that. If your body is showing up with more dysfunction, if you're still showing up with these different emotions that are not bringing you happiness, then just remind yourself there are more layers to look at. It's not that the work that they've done is for naught. It just means that there's more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, it's funny. It also reminded me of people that I know have been married multiple times. You know, that it seems like, all right, why there's people that I know that can't be single. They got married in college, they divorced, I know someone's been married 5 times and they're in their 50s. And I always thought she, you know, could never be single very long. She didn't know how to be alone. So I always wondered, okay, those situations must be something similar in there. That why can't you be alone? Why are you afraid of being single or living by yourself, even if you have children living with you? But some people are not able to be independent.
Well, you know, a lot of times that shows up very clearly with the inner child, because often our inner child is the one that is choosing our partnerships. So if you have had multiple partners and you kind of see a running theme with those partners, a lot of times, many of us tend to partner and marry either our mother or our father, because it's the inner child that's saying, okay, I recognize this particular personality. If I can get this person to love me, then I'm going to be okay. But the truth is we're picking the same personality. And that's where it can be helpful for the loving adult to be able to give that inner child what they need. A lot of times the inner child believes that what they need exists out there, and it doesn't. But we maybe have cut off that part of us unintentionally because we don't want to feel the pain. We're also cutting off the inner child. When we do that, they get the message that, oh, okay, then I'm not safe here with this one. I've got to go looking for it out there. And the thing is they can't find it. You know, really our happiness doesn't exist outside of us. It's really within. That's why I created this course as a way to teach adults today to be able to take it back and heal their inner child. So their inner child can then go to us and we can hear them in different ways, because it'll show up and we can say, okay, wait a minute. I can see my inner child is needing me right now. And just like you would with a physical child, take that time and acknowledge what's going on with you. What do you need right now? How can I nurture you? How can I love you? And just getting that acknowledgement can be enough, so that when we do start to look out in the world and consider partners, we're doing so from an adult perspective as opposed to an unhealed inner child one.
I always thought that too, that you have to love yourself before you love other people. And these people that used to tell my friend that, it's like, why don't you just learn how to love yourself before you feel like you have to be so codependent with somebody else that you don't feel loved, you know, when you're single, that you don't love yourself.
Right. But a lot of times that's because that's not what they were given. They weren't, you know, as children, we're taught how to love. But if we're raised with parents that don't know how to love themselves, then that's what gets passed on. And we don't know any different. And so that is why I wanted to create this, because I have a lot of compassion for people. So many people were raised in families where they didn't get the love and the nurturing, and they just don't know. They have no idea. It may seem like a simple enough concept to love yourself, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. And, you know, I really wanted to break it down and teach them how to do that.
Yeah. So have you had people use this program, and been successful with it probably.
Yes,
Like
yes. In fact, one of the reasons I created that and my book is because of the metaphysical sessions that I do. So, sometimes people will only come in maybe once a month, once every few months, and they do the metaphysical work. So I wanted to give them something so that they could practice it on their own. And then when they come in for sessions with me, then we can go through a little bit deeper.
I love that the name of it, Embracing Love and Letting Go, because I think, like you said, letting go is just so important. As we talk about in the podcast, the different elements of the holistic method is, the stress and the sleep and, all of that. But it seems like so much of these elements we discuss all the time and to improve your performance in life and sports is going to be related to letting go and embracing yourself. And people might be like, how is that going to make me faster in a race or do better at work? But I think if you just, switch that mindset too and make everything more of a positive. We're talking this morning, actually, clients, because it's been raining a lot in Seattle. It's like, oh my gosh, get me out of this. But it's like glass half full, glass half empty. And it's just, busy time of year and people have a lot going on, that just even being more positive helps bring energy to yourself. And I feed off of my clients too, and training clients of all different fit. My clients and my students are not athletes, they're not triathletes or runners. They're just people trying to be healthy. And I think this is such an essential part of being healthy on the inside and out, and transformation programs that we have to look at this thing. You don't think of it as, exercising more and eating better, but to optimize your health, I think happiness is definitely going to embrace it, as you do colonics. And how does that have to do with happiness? You put it all together. So there must be something behind it somehow being connected.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. And what a lot of people don't realize, we always have things going unconsciously and subconsciously. It is always there talking to us. So when we think about those things that we want to achieve, whether it's performance with our body, whether it's to be the best we can at our jobs, it is important to really understand what's running underneath the surface. And that's what is so key. And that's how people can start to make the connection between what's happening with them physically and what's showing up in their life, and really what we're thinking about. Because really the brain rules, our thoughts rule our brain, and our brain rules our body. That's how it goes.
And we've had the connection there to your gut and to your, like what you're talking about, colon therapy. And we've talked about in past episodes with neuroplasticity and the vagal tone and strengthening the vagal nerve, how it's all connected. It's like your gut-brain connection, happiness, and any depression up here and going on. The brain is what we need to focus on more, I think, to rewire the brain and to bring, like you're saying, figure out that inner child and dig deep, and then like rewire it in a way that you're doing it metaphysically.
Right. And that's why it is so important to eat foods that nourish us, because what's sitting in our gut goes back to our brain, because our neurotransmitters are living there. And so it's very, very important for us to eat in a way that is going to make us feel as best we can. But in order to do that, we need to believe that we're worthy. We need to be able to know that we're worth that. And that's where a lot of people can benefit from doing this internal work.
And, what kind of foods are nourishing foods? What do you have people kind of style of eating to help deal with all this?
I'm a proponent of eating for the blood type. That seems to work really well. I noticed that there are a lot of clients. I've had clients that have been constipated their entire life. And they start to eat for their blood type, and their bowels start to move. They don't have the gas. The digestion clears up. They sleep better. I can make a connection with, if I eat corn, which I love, but it will literally throw my back out as if I've bent over and picked something up or moved something heavy. Corn will do that. It inflames me to that level. So, I've been eating that way for about 17 years, and, I'm healthier, and my weight is less than when I was in high school, because I wasn't very healthy in high school. But it does make a huge difference. Certain foods, you'll pretty much know if a food is not good for you if you eat it and you kind of go into a food coma. It makes you really, really thirsty. It gives you physical pain anywhere. You get cranky. very lethargic. Those are going to be your indications that something that you ate, your body's not liking. And one of the things you can do is keep a food diary and start to track how you feel right after you ate something, about an hour after you ate it, and then a couple hours after. And then you'll start to see a pattern for yourself of which foods, resonate with you and which do not.
Yeah, so I have that in nutritional therapy. We give clients a 3-day food log or even longer to track what they're eating, but it has a chart for symptoms. Like, how did you feel after you eat? How do you feel an hour after? Another thing we've done is I'll have people do the heart rate test. That does your heart rate go up 6 beats or more after you eat a food? And that food often is not agreeing with your body.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a Cocoa Pulse test. It's been around a long time, but that's an easy one for people to do. We've talked about that. Rhonda Collier does our heart rate variability training with her company, Sweet Beat, and they have an app, and the heart rate variability testing measures nervous system, but also you can do that with your, take your pulse manually for 1 minute after you eat, before you eat and then after you eat, but it's an easy way to do it, or do it with the heart rate monitor with the app.
Great.
But
definitely going to work with clients on that.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is so, like you're saying, constipation and people that are kind of clogged up, so to speak, that if that's, related to embracing love and how that's connected, it's so interesting. But it goes back to what we talked about with John Jennis, my teacher, about his neoenergetics, the oils we use, vagal oil or bringing to flame, and there's energetic healing oils. How often we can't digest our food properly because we're so sympathetic dominant, and we need to shift to that parasympathetic state when we're eating. So we're not able to digest our food properly and end up having foods that you can't digest properly, end up in that constipated mode or having some gut infections, leaky gut. So it's kind of funny how it all ties together, just embracing love and loving yourself and being able to eat in a relaxed state because you're happy, not eating when you're stressed is big.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about the program is available where and how people can get a hold of it.
It's on my website, actually. Okay. Yeah. And so on my website, I have a top bar, and it's under retail, and I have my program there as well as my 2 books. So I wrote Embracing Love by Letting Go, a Metaphysical Cleanse. And then I wrote Embracing Life by Letting Go. That one is for, colon therapists, body workers, anybody who works with people in terms of service. That's a really great book. It's kind of a sensitivity training type book. But if anybody wants to get my Metaphysical Cleanse, the video, that one does come with a copy of my book as well. Great. And the website, it's all on the IyaSuColonics.com. Iyasu in Japanese means to heal. That's right. Yeah. So that's spelled EYASU. It's IY. Oh, IY, I said it wrong. IY. I can't read my phone. IYASU. COLONICS.com. Great. And we'll put that in the show notes. And are you going to do online programs like support group or kind of monthly ongoing programs in the future? It's interesting because my webinar producer that helped me get all this thing up, he was saying that it might be a good idea for me to start a Facebook group so that I can start to really interact with people more. It's, my challenge, as we talked about, is that I am, a single mom to a couple of kids, and I run my business, and I have all these other outside projects, right? So I'm like, really? How am I going to do that? But I down really, the pipeline. I know. I'd like to, though. I'd really like to be able to connect with people because that's my joy. Yeah. It's a place where people can ask questions and really find out, because I think that's challenging for people not to really know where to go to get specific questions answered. And I don't physically have enough time in the day to be able to, talk to people. Yeah. So I think that makes starting point. Yeah. What I decided to do is since the beginning, since October, October, November, and December, I'm taking time off of posting social media, really doing anything like that because I'm exhausted. Yeah, I pretty much the whole summer is where I put this program together that I created, and it wiped me out. And, I was kind of ignoring my kids, and that's not great. So I just wanted to be able to, like you said, walk my talk and balance myself out. So I started to do some group Pilates classes, which is amazing. And, just come back into my joy of resting and, not killing myself.
I know. So many people write these books, and we have our own businesses that I've, wanted this holistic method manual workbook was going to come out in November, and I'm delaying it again because I want it done right. And I had someone to reformat it all over again. And
good for you.
I don't want to rush, and I need to practice what I preach. Plus, it's taken me 5 years to heal my adrenals and my body, but we have to, so many people don't practice what they preach. And I think, if you're going to tell people to do this stuff, we need to be doing it. And I say this to my trainers, you can't train people if you're not taking care of your own self. And I just sent them a big email for it's the holiday season, make sure you're taking care of yourself and taking your own advice. And I think that's what we all need to do too. So I'm grateful for you, and thank you so much for sharing this program with our listeners. And hopefully we can help get some people finding out what's going on with their child, their inner self, and learning how to love themselves and letting go of some stuff that might be stored inside. They have no idea that's even going on in there.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful to you. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And I'd love to be able to offer an exercise right now, because when you were talking about learning to forgive others, I think this might be something that's helpful. So do we have time to do it?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Love it.
So what I'd like to do is ask everybody to close your eyes. And I'd like you to imagine that inside your heart lives a boat. And whatever your symbol of love is, for most people, it's a heart. Mine is a little ball of white light. Place that symbol onto that boat that's inside your heart. Now, place in front of you, directly in front of you, your favorite person on the planet. And just visualize that boat full of love going right out of your heart into theirs. And then after you're done with that, place another person in front of you that you just absolutely adore, and do the same thing. Now this next one, I'd like you to place somebody that's a bit challenging for you. And do the same thing. This one might take a little bit longer. And if there's anybody in your life that you're really struggling with, that you have a lot of anger and resentment towards, that person's next. And do the same thing. And if you can do this every day, it can change your life. It can change your relationships. And I really would encourage you to also do this with your inner child.
That's great. Thank you so much. It's ironically, if everyone goes back to last week's episode or previous episode, we finished in a meditation to find happiness. So thank you. It's on the same path of this season during the holiday season, we're doing these podcasts and having the attitude of gratitude and paying that forward to others. So bring on the happiness and get rid of the negativity and enjoy the season. Hopefully spread it all year long, not just the holiday season.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, thank you so much. I need to get down to LA for a day. Do you ever work Fridays?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll have to fly down on a Friday and come down and
that'd be great. I'd love to
get work done.
Wonderful. Thanks, Debbie.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.